Alrighty, how is it going, everybody? It is January 1st, 2021, so all the bad shit should be done now, right? Like, literally, everything. Everything that was ever bad in the United States and in the world should all evaporate from this point forward. And then, from here, we should be able to go forward with no issues whatsoever. No problems. I foresee not a single bad thing happening at all this year. Not a single one. Of all the shit that happened this year, I can't think of a single one of those that will happen twice. Now, of course, I'm lying. I am lying through my teeth. So hopefully everybody caught that. If you didn't catch that, I really don't know how to help you. Then again, Call for an Uprisings fans have basically made it a point to conveniently always miss the point of everything. So, not saying I have any cross contamination with Call. At least I hope not. 2020. Party Dude 17 says 2020 was like playing Minecraft on hardcore mode. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And, you know, allegorically to that, I even had a creeper blow up in my house. That wasn't fun. That wasn't fun at all. Cirrus lied. Big sad. I know, it's a big sad day. It's the worst day. Worst day of all time. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I have a couple things I need to talk about. We are still in the middle of the COVID crisis, unfortunately, so we're going to have a video on that because we have a crazy pastor who decided to mock his dead congregation. That's a thing. We're going to cover Keemstar a little bit. Less Keemstar and more just an idea. And then we do have a thing on why Christians care so much about sex, because, quite frankly, they do. Not all Christians. I don't know how many times I have to say that this is not all Christians, but generally speaking, this is a thing we see on the whole. This is a thing we see in the majority, especially here in the rural South. So, hopefully, we'll be able to get to all of our topics of that issue. And I've got some other stuff I want to talk about as well. Some other things as well. So, we'll see how all that goes. Growlith protect all. Hail Growlith. Growlith tries to protect all, but sometimes she ends up failing. She do her best, though. She really does. But, you know, we will see where we end up going from here. So how is everybody doing? What are your New Year's resolutions? Christian porn stream. Yay. Give me that Christian porn stream. Did she growl at leaves as a pupper? No, not really. So when you join the stream late, safe in the knowledge that Cirrus is always late and get caught out. Hey! I was not late this time. Don't. I did all of my chores before I streamed, and that solved all my problems. Everything was good from that point forward. I know one of my New Year's resolutions is going to be to fix the state of my channel. It has... The last year has been really weird for my channel. Can we do a year in review thing? I think we'll do that real quick. Before we get into anything else, maybe we'll do that. So you never know with my country. Well, you never know with these states either. So it is a new year, and I do want to kind of go over some of the stuff that's happened with the channel over the course of this year, because we've had quite the changes over the past, well, ever. So maybe let's go ahead and talk about some of that for a little bit, because some of that it pertains to you guys, because if you watch the channel, then this affects you, at least insofar as you continue to watch my content. So at the beginning of this year, I had really, really bad mental health. Like, it was not good. I was cutting streams out early. I was not getting videos out on time, which that really hasn't ever changed, but it was much worse then. And I started going to therapy, and that helped a shit ton. I'm not even going to lie. That helped get me back on track mentally very, very well. But over the course of that time, we also had COVID hit. You know, the Rona. It came to town and decided that, hey, your friends and family don't matter. What if we just started putting their heads on the chopping blocks? And aside from the fact that a few of my friends did get infected, and I did have some family get infected, I don't believe I personally lost anybody during this, at least not that I am mostly aware of. So there is at least that, and that's good. But there is something that I did lose during this, and that was a lot of traction. See, even with the channel, or even with my mental health going down, I could at least attribute that the performance of my channel was not doing well because of that. Well, then the channel got stolen, and of course there was the month-and-a-half-long fiasco where that happened. Hey, the dryer's done. I'm so glad we have one of those again. The last one broke. So, in this last year, we had a good month and a half or so where the channel got stolen and then had to get it back. Now, anybody who is a YouTuber, or has done YouTube before and has ever gotten any amount of success and then seen like what happens to their numbers with that, traction for my channel went down the drain because, well, channel was gone. It was stolen. And the algorithm doesn't really look favorably on things when you don't upload for a month and a half after you've had a steady upload schedule for the last decent bit of time. So then I went, okay, well, I'm going to start pumping out content and getting myself set back up. And the channel did start to gain traction again. Things started going back to where they were somewhat originally. I never got the same amount of views, and I never got the same amount of revenue, but things were at least looking like, you know, maybe in another year's time I can repair this damage. Maybe. Then we got to the point where we started needing finances incredibly badly. So I moved to this format because I was, again, slacking on getting videos out on time, and with the amount of views that I was gaining on videos, we're now stuck in the situation where if I'm getting 3,000 to 4,000 views on a video, I can't just deal with getting 2 videos out and a couple live streams out every week, because at that point, I'm making like, what, $60 to $70 a week, which is, I'm sure, enough for somebody to look at and go, well, that's what your content's worth. And you know what? On some days, I think that my content's worth maybe a little less than that. But I do have a responsibility for taking care of myself and my family. So, during this, I decided, you know what, let's try streaming every day. Or not every day, but streaming enough to upload twice a day. That took everything out of me. Holy crap. I'm not doing that again. But I am still trying to upload almost every day, based on stuff that's coming in from the streams. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed that. It means there's a constant stream of content here, and if we are on a stream together, we can interact here, but if not, then at least you'll be able to catch the more important bits afterwards. So I started doing that, but I made a mistake, I believe. A year and a half ago, I made this mistake before, and that's I started gaming on my channel, started doing some gaming content on it. Not realizing that my channel being in the precarious position that it was in, I shouldn't have done that. Not then and not now, because by doing it then and now, I noticed that my numbers dropped to almost nothing. It happened before, and it's happening again. If you look on Social Blade at my channel, the subscriber numbers have basically stagnated. They've flatlined completely. And I believe a majority of that is my fault, for a combination of things. One was just pointed out to me on Twitter. I haven't been able to keep my hand really on the pulse of what's been going on politically lately. I'm very behind the curve on a lot of things because I've had to focus on my own stuff, and I'll get into that here in a second. And the other thing is that these experiments that I've been doing on my channel have probably disenfranchised some viewers. More than likely. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, and nor would I fault any of you. I am... For 3 years, I've been using an avatar to talk and slowly improving on that particular format, and then suddenly we switched to this format, where I'm less composed, I'm less edited, things are a lot less put together, and the aesthetics aren't as good because, of course, you're not looking at a cartoon representation of me that looks somewhat better. You're looking at just me, which, let's be completely and honest, is not the most pleasant thing to look at. So, understanding that the format changes and me doing some things that maybe didn't give the algorithm the best look at my channel, whenever YouTube is trying to suggest me to somebody, it's probably sitting there going, well, atheism, gaming, and it's never quite in a single category. So I think what I need to do is focus my content down. But here's where the ball gets kind of thrown back to you guys. This is not me throwing the ball back and that, oh, I'm blaming you. No, that's not what's happening here. I'm going to throw the ball back to you guys because I want to get your feedback. Feedback from people in the live chat right now. Feedback from everybody in the comment section when this is uploaded as a video. I want to know what you think the channel should do going forward, because this is as much my channel as it is your channel. As much as I would like to just sit back and make the content that I want to make, there is a certain level of that I have to understand is I'm making content for consumption. I'm making content for people to consume, for people to enjoy or get informed by or what have you. So what content of mine have I done in the past, or have I done recently, that you've enjoyed a lot? Which would you like to see more of in the future? And conversely, what content of mine from the past and from now would you rather not see any more of? What stuff would you rather not deal with on the channel going forward? Basically, when a video goes live and you see it, which are the ones that make you go, I don't want that one. I'm going to just not click that one. I'm not going to watch it, not even give it a view. What are the videos that I do that make you do that? Hopefully, I can maybe get a bit of an idea of what people do like, don't like, and kind of figure out where we should be going forward, because 2021 is a new year. And I'm not trying to do a whole New Year's resolution thing, though jokingly I will say my New Year's resolution is to fix my channel. But this year has been an incredibly rough one for my channel. I saw 2 good years of really substantial growth for my channel, and then suddenly this year, things have just flatlined and stagnated, and it's a mixture of circumstance and also my fault and also things that I might not even know about. So I want to see what I can do to improve, because at the end of the day, I do not want this to be a Debbie Downer moment. I do not want this to be me going, things are just so bad. I want this to be, what can I do to improve? What can I do to make things better for me? What can I do to make things better for you? So let me know in the comments section. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in whichever way you want the things that you want to see more of, the things that you want to see less of, so that maybe in this next year, in 2021, we can go forward without having as many issues. At least on the channel side. We got some issues in 2021 we need to address. Where the country is concerned and where other topics are concerned. But just strictly in this little virtual space, maybe we can figure some stuff out. So, I guess this is where I'll go ahead and talk with the chat for a bit about what's going on here. Real Cirrus is judging us. Real Cirrus is contemplating back there. More character analysis with philosophy would be really cool, but that's just me. I personally think more advanced philosophical analysis might help a lot of big channels do that. Love all your content, but especially like stuff explaining specific philosophical concepts. The one that do so through the lens of fictional characters were enjoyable and really helpful. See, that's the thing, is that, like, I would love to do more of the character analysis stuff, but it performed so badly. But it's weird. The stuff that people say that they loved the most on this channel is the stuff that performs the worst. And I don't get it. It's weird. More philosophy and pseudoscience. Okay. Dangers of Woo. Said you love Hammered Out. I would like to get back to doing Hammered Out. The amount of times that real life has just, like, grabbed me or Ocean by the neck and just flung us into a wall and said, nah, Hammered Out's not happening right now. The Creator's Paradox. Content people want or food on the table. So the ones where you take down people are more popular because the algorithm likes drama. True. How's it going, Dren? The Philosophy 101 Basics to Argument video you made but never got published. Said, do I have any plans for a full gaming channel? Well, I do have the full gaming channel up, but I do need to figure out what I want to do on it. And therein lies one of the issues, is that I have no idea what I want to produce for that channel. I know stuff that I'd love to do, but you should box Paul Logan. Paul Logan? Maybe? I need to actually, like, practice boxing. That would probably help. Minority comment, the minority comments, so maybe we are not the people to give you good ideas. Well, true, but it is stuff that I'd like. I do want to know. Because even if it means that I only produce one video a week that is specifically things that people want to see, maybe it'll help. Maybe. But while we get into all of that, can we talk about some other stuff? More collabs with larger creators to help your channel grow. That is something that I want to start doing more of. I'm trying to find the time to do my video with Prophet Azad. That said, let's go ahead and get into our first topic, crazy pastors. As people bring in their ideas for the channel improvement. Because you guys can keep on bringing in your ideas. I have no problem with that, and I will read them as we go. 8 just got done with his video. To be serious, the ideas from video comments may be more useful if you have several thousand views on those. Yep, I guess we'll see how things go. But let's get into pastors, because at the end of the day, this channel did begin as an atheist channel specifically, and it is still that. So let's go ahead and talk about how pastors generally respond to COVID. Now, I know that there's a lot of channels that are trying not to say the virus name because apparently the algorithm doesn't like it, but I'm going to be honest, that makes communication really awkward when it's the central focus of a video, so maybe let's not. But Hemet Meta posted a video on Twitter of a particular pastor, and I wanted to go over it because I think that this is fascinating and also morbid. Like, it really scary too, all things considered. Not pleasant. So if you have a loved one who has passed due to COVID, or you personally have suffered due to it, this may not be the video for you. This may be just a little bit triggering, but if you think you can stomach it, this is scary, and this is happening in the United States right now in a lot of churches. Not just the one on display here. But let's go ahead and get into the video itself.
Yeah, we welcome masks. Wear a mask. Sit here, sit there, sit there, sit over there, sit up there. We answered people's questions for Sherry's funeral and for Les's funeral.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start out. What is going on right now? Well, what we are seeing is a pastor saying that no, you don't have to wear a mask here, and you can sit anywhere you want in the congregation. So you don't have to social distance, and you don't have to wear any type of protective face covering while out. Now, personally, I have an issue with this. If you want to go to church, if you feel like you need to gather and go to church, you know, that's your prerogative. I have been against it in the past, and I'm still against it right now because it's not safe yet. But if you are going to go, if you desperately feel that need to go, please wear a mask. Please make sure you're 6 feet apart from other people. Please make sure that you are only keeping your, like, if you're going to be in a group of people, just keep it to people who are in your immediate family, people who you are already, like, in a house with, stuff like that. Don't just go into the local church and sit next to a random old lady there, and then, you know, a week later you've got COVID, and you go, ah, damn it, well, at least I'm not going to go to church now. I've caught it now, not realizing that, well, you technically had it for a week already. So you probably gave it to the girl you sat next to in the pew. So maybe don't do that. If you desperately feel the need to go to a gathering, don't be stupid about it. That's basically where I would sit right now. I'd prefer you just don't, but if you're gonna go, don't be a dipshit. But it gets a little worse.
And guess what? They were liars and hypocrites and cowards.
So, I want you to think about this for just a second, okay? I'm going to replay this part.
And for Les's funeral. And guess what? They were liars and hypocrites and cowards.
So either based on the context, we are either viewing them saying that the people who asked questions during the funeral were liars, hypocrites, and cowards, or we are seeing him say that the deceased were liars, hypocrites, and cowards. Maybe some more context will help.
Why? Because I want to come, but I want to make sure that I can social distance. They social distance. 6 miles is not the recommendation.
All right. So, let's talk about this. This shit right here. Because this is gross. And maybe let's go ahead and talk about why. So what we have is a pastor who is saying that his congregation, members of his congregation, who are now dead, by the way, who are now dead. Also, apparently the orange saturation makes it look like I murdered a bag of Cheetos. Why is the lighting so bad right now? I'll need to figure that out later. But apparently, we have a pastor who is saying that his congregation, people in his congregation, people that he's supposed to love, people he's supposed to teach and move through the world and the cacophony that's going on through it, as a leader, as a biblical scholar, this dude is saying that his dead congregation members were liars and hypocrites. Now, why is he saying that? Because they didn't want to go to church during a pandemic. He is shaming the dead because they didn't want to come to church during a pandemic. Now, if these members died of COVID, they may have potentially saved the lives of several other people in their congregation by not going, because this is a congregation that is not social distancing. Everybody is just here doing their own thing, which, you know, a little bit dangerous right now. This is disgusting. It's gross. And it's not just happening in this church. It's happening in other ones. But there is still more to go.
If you wear...
And that little bit of audience laughter there was not. This is like watching Steven Anderson. This is like watching Steven Anderson's shit, where he'll say something cruel and evil, and then the audience just laps it up. And not one person stands up and goes, "Hey, dude, maybe we shouldn't do insert evil thing you just suggested here."
Wear something, you wear something for love.
If you wear something, you wear something for love. Well, I don't want other people to die. That could be considered an expression of a very small platonic form of love. So I wear a mask when I go outside so that they don't get hurt. Seems pretty reasonable.
If you take it off for love. And you...
That could almost be seen as, like, shaming a sex worker. I don't know if that's what he meant, but that could really be read that way. But that's not the context of what's going on here.
You are a slave to nothing.
Oh, it's the COVID is... okay, so the whole context of this then is just the masks or slavery bit. Now, how many of you have actually seen somebody, read on Facebook, Twitter, talked to them in real life at work, something where they've said that wearing a mask is a form of slavery? How many of you? It's a pretty common thought right now. And I personally don't understand it. If a mask is slavery, necessarily a seatbelt is slavery. Necessarily pants are slavery. Because they are all functionally the same thing. Seatbelt is a protection device that you wear in order to protect yourself from getting injured in a car. A pair of pants is something that I wear in order to protect the eyes of others from getting injured from when they have to stare at my micropenis. So, to me, a mask is just an extension of societal norms that we've already been accepting for decades. So I don't see how it can be viewed as a form of slavery. Unless the only way that you can feel free is if you can drive naked in a top-down hot rod with no seatbelt. If that's the only thing that you can possibly have to make you feel like you're a strong and independent person, I don't know if I can help you. I don't know if I can even reach you in a conversation.
And you tell me if you have half of a brain left.
I can tell you right now that you don't.
That our country is not being led by the nose into absolute slavery. It already is.
It already is? The country's already in absolute slavery, and yet you're able to sit here and engage in free speech with no repercussions whatsoever. Moreover, by extension of that, I am able to engage in the same type of free speech by commenting on this. And I'm able to go outside without a mask on. I'll just be looked at kind of weird. I'm not able to go into a private establishment without a mask on if they have a mask mandate, because the private establishment can determine whether or not I am on that premises at all. And they've always had that kind of power. So this is confusing. I still don't understand this mask is slavery debate, because it seems to me, like I said, that this is just an extension of societal norms that we've already accepted.
So to be free is to be defiant. Does anybody have a calculator?
To be free is to be defiant. Now, he's about to do something really disgusting, really gross with a poor use of math. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about this freedom is defiance thing. Now, there are situations in which freedom is defiance, and defiance necessarily is a precursor to certain freedoms. Civil disobedience in the event of, say, a certain race being told that they should sit in the back of a bus. Civil disobedience. Or even flat-out rioting in the event where there is systemic racism and you have police that are killing an inordinate amount of a particular group of people. There are situations where, yes, defiance is an attempt to gain freedom or an expression of freedoms that you believe you should have had to begin with. But when I see this statement here, this is the thing that I've seen from Greg Locke, and I've seen from other pastors as well, and it seems that the sentiment here basically boils down to, I'm only free if I can argue against authority, or I'm only free if I can rebel against authority. And while I can accept that premise, while I can accept that your ability to disagree, to rebel, to do all those things is an expression of freedom, I do have to wonder, why is it, and I'm going to engage in too quick way here for just a second, but why is that same standard not applied when it comes to their God? I'm going to be talking about hell later today, more than likely. And why is the standard of freedom is the disobedience, being able to do these things? That standard is not applied to God, especially not in relation to things like heaven and hell, which I believe are completely unjust structures, even within the Christian mythos. How is it that this mentality seems to just stop at the arbitrary creator? That's a very perplexing situation to be in. But let's continue. Let's our bit of tu quoque out of the way. Let's go.
Now, I already did this. I'll cheat. I'm not a math whiz. American population, say 300 million, okay?
Okay.
Because I heard on the news from a very worried young reporter who, I don't even know if they have a driver's license anymore.
Why would that even matter? Okay, so this is a type of poisoning the well. What he is engaging in right now is he's poisoning the well by engaging in a genetic fallacy. The fallacy at hand is arguing that the efficacy of whatever the reporter could say is going to be tinted through the lens of their age. A genetic fallacy is just taking the source of information and then basing its true or false value on the source alone. Not the likelihood that it's true, but just basing the value there. This is a bit of an engagement that he's doing right here, and because he's doing it before he's engaged in the topic at hand, the topic that he's going to mention, he's also engaging in poisoning the well, which is where before you allow an audience to hear the statement being made by an interlocutor, hypothetical, imaginary, or real, you are painting a picture for them to go in so that they can walk in with bias. Now, everybody engages in poisoning the well on some level, especially if you're on YouTube, because there's a level of theatrics involved where you have to go, hey, we're going to do this. Now, let me go ahead and lead up to this person, give you some context for this person so that you know who they are going in. there's a level of that almost everybody ends up engaging in, and to an extent, you kind of have to. So I can't really blame him for poisoning the well here. I know I've done it myself, but I do want to point out that it's happening, because you should be able to recognize when it's happening, even when I do it. So, let us continue with the young reporter.
Giving us the news. 300,000 people. Okay, America's 300 million.
Okay.
Take 10% of 300 million, what is it? 30 million. Oh, well, that's not, we don't have that many. Okay, that's 10%. Okay, then 10% of 30 million is 3 million? 30 to 3, right? Then take 10% of 3 million, 300. So if I keep, wait a minute, that's 0.1%. So I guess we're still surviving 99.8% as a whole, and we do not disrespect less.
Okay, so what is happening right here? What is he doing? If you're in the comment section and you want to pause the video and go ahead and explain what you think he's doing right now, go right ahead and we'll see if we are correct here. But if you don't want to do that and you just want to continue the video, then we can go ahead and do that right now. What he's doing here is he is trying to use statistics, a very loose appropriation of it, in order to downplay the severity of an issue. Now, what's that saying that one death is a tragedy, but 100 deaths is a statistic? It goes along those lines. And he's basically doing the reverse of that. He's picked in his head an arbitrary number that he should shoot for, but realizing that 300,000 people is a huge number, certainly larger than his congregation. If 300,000 people included half of his congregation, he'd freak the fuck out. But those numbers would still be the same. Instead of accepting the fact that 300,000 deaths is a large number, this is a lot of people to have dead. This is more people than the flu kills. This is more people than were killed in 9/11. This is more people than... We had more people that were killed in 9/11. More people than were killed in 9/11 are killed every day by COVID right now. But in order to downplay the virus, he has to grab the numbers that don't matter, which are the death rate versus the entire population. To him, as long as we have enough Americans surviving, we're okay. But by that metric, you could pick anything. You could say 1%. Oh, well, 3 million people died, and that's horrible, but, you know, it's only 1% of the population. That's not that bad. You can do that with any number of any magnitude. You can downplay it by cutting it down to the percentage and ignoring the real individual people, the individual lives that have been lost. You can do it. It's a gross thing to do. It's disrespectful. But you can do it. Now, why does this not matter? Well, a couple of reasons. Well, one, when we're looking at the actual fatality rate for a virus, we don't look at the fatality rate versus the total population that exists. We look at the fatality rate versus the amount of people who've been infected. Because it's very hard to die of COVID if you don't have COVID. And he's ignoring those numbers, which are certainly a lot higher. Between, what, 2.7 and 3%? Somewhere around there, if memory serves. I don't remember the exact numbers. But COVID's kill rate is pretty high, and its infection rate is pretty high. But by painting the numbers in a very particular way, he gets to skirt away from the actual issue, ignoring the fact that 300,000 people died. Hey, let's go ahead and play this game. We can. We can play this game grossly. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, what I'm about to engage in is terrible behavior. It's shitty. What I'm about to do is not a good thing. But I want to give you an example. Let's talk about the Holocaust for just a second. Okay? Now, ignoring that the total number of people that died in the Holocaust is somewhere upwards of 11 million, let's just focus on those that died in camps that were Jewish. That number is somewhere around 6 million. Now, let's go ahead and use his exact reasoning. I'm not a math whiz, so we're just going to use approximations. So we have 6 million people. There we go. That died. Now, this is a huge number. This is more than anybody has in their family. Just consider your entire family genocided for a second. That is a scary, scary thing to consider. But let's just go ahead and keep this number. Let's do the same thing that he did, and I'll show you why this is gross. Why this doesn't work. Because you can say that anything isn't a tragedy by using this method. 6 million people died in the camps. Now, this may have happened only in Germany, but we're going to go ahead and apply what's called the reductio ad absurdum. We're going to go ahead and take this argument to its logical extreme and show why it doesn't fucking work. So we're going to compare this number to the population of the world. Okay? So, 6 million people exterminated in these camps. Because, of course, the Jews didn't all come from Germany. So we can't use Germany numbers. So we're just going to go ahead and use the world. Or you know what? Let's be more accurate. Let's use the whole population of Europe. Okay? Let's use the whole population of Europe. As of 2016, that is 741 million people. We'll use that. That's as far as I'll take the reductio. Okay? So we have 741 million divided by 6 million. Or that's not how we do that. But 6 million. How many times does 6 million go into 741? Well, 123. 123.5 times. So the 6 million people that died in camps are necessarily smaller than 1%. Well, now we can say that this strategy, this tragedy right here, this tragedy that happened, the genocide of Jewish people by Hitler's regime, it was less than 1% of the population of Europe. And he was assailing a lot of Europe, but it was less than 1% of the population of Europe. How is that even a oh, whoa, that's not even a bad tragedy. That's not that bad. That's not horrible. Now, I'm sure there's going to be somebody who's going to clip that and go, oh, look, sir, this is downplaying the Holocaust. The reality is that what I'm doing here is showing that through this method of just fudging up your percentage, and I recognize that I did that backwards, but I can still get to the point where it's less than 1% by just saying, well, it goes in 123 times. It was necessarily less than 1%. I recognize my mistake in math there. I just woke up. But by using this method, we can see that it necessarily downplays the value of life. It downplays it and approximates it to a number and a percentage. If I say that, well, Hitler may have engaged in one of the worst tragedies of the world, but, I mean, statistically speaking, he only got less than 1% of a population. That's not that bad. I mean, fuck, I could have done better. It's very easy. And it's disgusting. Because you can take that sentiment and use it for anything, to downplay anything. A serial killer kills 26 people. Well, he killed them all in this tri-state area over here, and there's 100,000 people there, and that's way less than 1%. So really, do they really engage in anything that horrible? It's not that bad, right? Except anybody with, what did he say, half a brain? Anybody with half a brain can realize what I'm doing here. I'm using numbers to manipulate you. Especially by watching me do it, I'm using numbers to manipulate. And there's so many other instances where this is done. The worst part is, though, is that it works. It works. And that's the part that just astounds me, is that there are people who this method works on. Now, hopefully, if you are engaging in a conversation with somebody who uses methods like this, maybe after watching this video, you'll at least have the tools required to show them why their methodology is wrong. If I can use this to downplay all tragedies, then I necessarily can't use this method to downplay any tragedy. Because if it works perfectly for every single situation, then necessarily it doesn't work for all of them. At least when we're dealing with a situation like this. Because like I said, this can be used to downplay what a serial killer does. This can be used to downplay slaughter from the military. This was used to downplay, in this situation, the Holocaust. And it's being used by the pastor to downplay the deaths from COVID. Even though these aren't the right numbers to be using in any case, it doesn't matter. The method is consistent, and it is consistently bad. So if you catch somebody doing this, don't let them. Don't. But if you enjoyed this, if you found this useful in any way, shape, or form, please do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and hit the bell notification icon. That shit helps way more than I could even express. And if you really enjoy what I'm doing, then maybe consider donating on Patreon. You'll get your name in the credits at the end of the video, and you will also get a slide if you are a $20 or higher patron. Though there are some of my patrons who have not told me what they want their avatars to be there, so there are a couple of $20 patrons who don't have their slides yet. But if these are things that you want, and you want to support this channel and what I do, then that is an option. But I hope you guys enjoyed. There we go. Ow. And my back had to be popped. That didn't feel great. Why am I getting... Why do I have a voicemail? Who's trying to call me? Why would you do that? What's the benefit of calling me? I don't see any. Wait a minute. This dude went to PCA and started a YouTube channel? Oh, that's weird. That's gross. Oh, wow. No. I'm not dunking on a child. No. Fuck that shit. What's the superior breakfast item? Okay. Spicy breakfast burrito. A spicy breakfast burrito. So somebody on Twitter sent me posted a thing for a show, basically saying that I could, I could comment on this, and it's a kid who hosts a show and went to PCA. PCA is the school I went to, Pensacola Christian Academy. It was a disgusting place to be. And it basically just engaged in teaching you how to hate. But, I'm familiar with the shit that goes on there because I went there. But apparently, somebody wanted me to check out his channel and respond to him. But the dude's a kid. The dude's a kid. I'm not gonna dunk on a child. Not right now. Still can't comprehend how Americans eat sweets for breakfast. Yara, so I can explain it pretty easily. It's actually a lot of marketing. So sweets for breakfast, there's a channel that actually covered this very well called Some Ordinary Things. It covered cereal specifically, but the reason that Americans see sweets for breakfast as a normal thing is twofold. One, reinforcement in media. The idea that donut is a breakfast item never occurred to me until I was told that it was a breakfast item. That was a weird revelation when I was younger. 2, marketing as far as like cereal and stuff is concerned, cereal's basically just sugar-coated corn or sugar-coated wheat, depending on what cereal you get and enjoy. And the marketing behind cereal has been pushed pretty heavily, down to the fact where they'll even do things like, oh, cookies for breakfast, stuff like that. But the way that they get around this is by saying it's part of a balanced breakfast, meaning that your balanced breakfast should apparently necessarily include orange juice, milk, cereal, a Pop-Tart, and then like an actual breakfast item. That marketing scheme has been going on for decades, and it has thoroughly convinced people that these are normal things to do. Seriously, the reason American C-suites is breakfast is capitalism. I mean, yeah. Onion Boy, I can't do keto right now, and I'm not going to do it for a little while again, because the last time I did keto, a tree fell next to my house, and I had to actually try to get it cut down and get enough energy to take care of it, and we didn't have enough power in the house to cook food, because, the tree destroyed the line. Basically, life fucked up and said, no, you can't do keto the last time. So this time, I'm probably not going to. Not for a little while. Not just because I can't, because I'm engaging in a lot of fucking physical labor at the moment, and keto is not great for giving you fast energy. Carbs break down into sugar, which gives you fast energy, which is good for doing work around the house. Doing proteins and fats is perfectly fine for keeping you full, and it's good for that, and that's one of the reasons keto helps you lose weight, aside from ketosis, but it doesn't do well for keeping you highly energized. At least it didn't for me. Does this mean that there's literally no ethical consumption under capitalism? Now you're getting it. Now you're understanding. You like Reese's Puffs, Sarah? Do you all like? I am partial to Cocoa Flakes, Trix, Crunch Berries, and Oreo cereal. I think all that stuff is pretty neat. Oh, s'mores cereal. S'mores cereal's good too. Oh, it's very hard to eat out on keto. It is very difficult to eat out on keto. I'm going to be right back, and then we will continue with the next topic, but I have to use the restroom. Elsewise, I will be in suffering. So I will be back, everybody. Please go to the bathroom as well. It could be incredibly helpful. we are back. Sorry that took so long. I had to use the restroom, and y'all assholes talking about cereal made me get a bowl. A bowl of cereal. A bowl of cereal specifically. Which, of course, means now my lactose intolerance is going to freak the hell out. That's okay. You know, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. All things considered, I should not have done that. That was not the right thing to do. But hopefully we can get back on track here. Do 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 do. Alrighty. So, I have not talked about Keemstar before because, quite frankly, I don't care. I generally don't care to. He seems like just basically a shitposter who tends to, I know I talked about poisoning the well earlier, and here I go poisoning the well, who tends to do things solely for the reaction. But this is a unique situation where we kind of see him doing something for the reaction and then also instructing other people on doing the exact same thing. So I want to go ahead and take a look at this real quick, personally. It's going to be a short video. This one's going to be very short. But here we have Keemstar going, I really don't understand this younger generation. Why would anyone put their pronouns in their Twitter bio? The entire point of having pronouns is to be offended when someone calls you the wrong pronoun. Now I don't know if Keemstar understands, but he has a pronoun. If he failed English, I guess, I could understand not understanding that he has a pronoun. But Keem, just in case you weren't aware, by identifying as a man, you have a pronoun. Your pronouns are he, him. If that's the thing that people refer to you in conversation as, if that's the thing that you put on documentation, that's the thing that you address yourself as, the thing you think of yourself as, that's what that is. That's what that is. All a pronoun is a noun that acts as a name. Not as a name, but a noun in reference to an individual. So he, him, they. That's a pronoun. You have a pronoun, Keem. I don't know if you get that. But he continues. Why give people the answer? All I'm saying is that if you give people the correct pronoun, you're missing a golden opportunity of being a victim and going viral on social media. Based on the little bit that I understand about Keemstar, that's a very telling statement. Just throwing that out there. But he then says, think about all the tweets you could be making, crying about being a victim and all the likes you would get. Be smarter. Now, I understand that there's two sides, there's multiple sides to this, but there's two sides to this. One is that this is just Keem instructing people on doing the same thing that he does, apparently. Apparently, talking about language bothers you. It's very scary. I understand that the English language is a complicated mess. But the other part of this, the other side to this, is that it seems to me that people like Keemstar and also Leafy, who has been banned from YouTube, but Leafy is here saying that, gender doesn't define them, which is why they put it in their bio. People like this have kind of made their money off of people getting offended about pronouns and off of people getting offended about this, that, or the other thing. Like that kind of drama is literally what made their channels tick for so long. So there's another side to this. Is this just Keemstar wanting more people to react like the big reds of the world, basically, in a desperate attempt to farm content from it? I know that I know that if I were Keem in this situation, there's a part of me that would be thinking that. Because there's a part of me that would go, hey, by saying this take, multiple people are going to respond to it, and then I've got content I can make, I can do things. It's like wanting more of those 10 questions atheists can't answer type things. Even though those don't get made anywhere near as often as they do now, they were such easy content to make. And it was so easy to just grab one of those and grab whatever answers I figured were correct for each one of those things, because usually they were pretty simple, like, How did life come about? Well, we don't know, but insert thing here. It's the same kind of deal where, like, you really want that age of just really offended liberal wokeness, I guess, is what they'd be going for. And it just doesn't have it anymore, apparently. Which, I mean, I guess I feel bad for Keem because he doesn't have the easy content farm, but I also don't. Not really. But, like I said, this is going to be a short one. Just, if the English language offends you, I can understand why. I really can. And there are valid reasons to not be terribly happy with English as a language. But if this is your take, if this is what you're doing, I don't know if I can help much. I don't know what to say to you. Aside from, dude, you have a pronoun. You do. Whether you deny it or not, you have one. That's how our language works. And if that upsets you, why are you being a victim? At least you took the opportunity. But that's just a small thing. That's just a little one that I wanted to talk about. Ah. Transphobic creators and transfolk invented pronouns. Oh my god. So somebody left apparently. I'm back, snowflake beta males. Okay. Ethica, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to have a chat about that? Are you even in the chat anymore? Yeah, you're in the chat. You felt that net crack? Yeah. It felt good though. It felt really good. The point of pronouns in your bio is so that people can know what to refer to you as. Because, like, if I put up Rule 63 Surus as my character, somebody's going to respond to me as a she at some point, even though those are not my pronouns. Hell, I'm probably going to end up getting, like, a female VTuber avatar at some point. And when I do, because that's a thing that I want to do, when I do, there's going to be somebody who's going to go, why is there a male voice coming out of that? But everybody in the chat who's been watching for years is going to know the joke. They'll know. It was like, well, no, Rule 63 Surus has been kind of an inside thing for ages. Might as well become the meme for a while. Might as well. You aren't a girl? How do you have a beard? I'm shook. I said I sometimes wish Twitter would have pronouns in the same way as location's birthday. It's meme time. Only cure for sadness. Let me check a thing here. I think... I could be wrong, but I need to check a thing to see what is going on here. I'm sorry, guys. Give me a moment. Okay. So that's a thing I probably should do. That's unfortunate. Okay. I know I said I'm not going to do the double uploads, but I think I might end up having to do it anyway. I need help with pronouns! I'm half boomer! Jesus. How's it going, Skeptical Wolf? Alright, So for the next segment, I want to talk about why Christians care so much about sex. Now, I don't know why I have to say this every single time, but I feel that I will regret not doing it if I don't. Honestly, this is not all Christians. There are Christians who don't care. There are Christians who are actually reasonable about this subject. There are Christians who I consider friends who are very progressive on this subject. But I do want to point out that there are enough, especially where I live, where this conversation happens every day. So just know this is not a hasty generalization on Christians. This is talking about specific kinds, so if you personally want to be the Christian that types in the comment, well, I'm not like that, or my congregation isn't like that, good, awesome. Spread that kind of love. Spread that kind of mentality. But this is not that.
You're in a conversation and someone says, Christians are so hung up about sex. Why is it such a big deal to them? What would you say?
Well, I would say exactly what I said 10 seconds ago. Some Christians are. That is toxic. Not all Christians are. And the ones that aren't should be doing as good of a job as they can to promote that mentality in their religion.
Before you can know what you should do with something, you have to know what that something is for. For example, I used to love to look...
Oh, is this going to be... Okay, I think I know where this is going already, and I'm going to make a prediction. Bear in mind, I haven't seen this video. So, this is one that was recommended to me for me to see. I am viewing it here for the first time. I'm going to go ahead and take a guess that this is going to say something along the lines of, sex is made for having babies, therefore sex should only be used for having babies. If that's the case, well, this is going to be fun.
At the tools in my grandpa's garage, but he wouldn't let me just play with them however I wanted because he knew I might break them, or something else, or my...
If your child could break your tool, you bought a cheap tool. I'm kidding. I've actually broken my fair share of tools as a kid, so that's not really a fair point. Yes, teaching children how to use tools, like how to use things for their intended purpose, is a good thing to do. But bear in mind, as I learned during my renovation project on the house, not every tool designed for a specific job can only be used for that specific job. For instance, the tool in question here is a claw hammer. Now, this is for hammering in nails, removing nails, and or wanton destruction if need be. Would you like to know one of the other things I found that it's really useful for? When we were fixing the floor of our house, we had to remove the original subfloor. Now, our subfloor originally was built in a set of layers. The first subfloor was a layer of particle board with a layer of vinyl on top, and then a layer of plywood, which was the actual subfloor, and then a layer of thinner plywood on top as the float for the floor. Now, for anybody who's seen the extensive damage that was done to our house, thanks to water and pipes and all that fun stuff, when we went down there and started stripping out the floor, creating the 200-foot chasm that exists in our house at the moment, or not at the moment now, we fixed it now, but existed a handful of weeks ago, this claw hammer became incredibly useful. Not just for removing nails that the subfloor was pinned down with, it was pinned down with a mixture of nails and screws, but also we found that some of the subfloor had deteriorated so much that you couldn't get a screw out of it because the screw had been sunk down and the wood had swollen up above where the screw was, so it was basically enveloped. So we couldn't get screws out, we couldn't get nails out, the ones that weren't stripped. So we ended up having to just rip parts of the subfloor out completely. Well, when you rip parts of the subfloor out, if it's particle board like this was, it doesn't break off cleanly, it tends to come off in chunks. And some of those chunks were still attached quite handedly to the support beams on the bottom of the house. So what did we do? Well, turns out one of the extra applications for this little claw hammer doohickey right here was to take the back claw part of it and literally beat the individual freaking molded bits of particle board out from under nails so that we could then nail the nails down to create a flat surface to put new floor over. That hammer was not designed for removing particle board that was swollen up with mold. But when you've only got a handful of tools on hand, and you can only afford a handful of generalized tools instead of a bunch of specialized ones, turns out, even if its intended use was not for a particular thing, you can make that tool do other things, and it can be damn good at that job. Now, why am I saying this? Well, because I'm assuming that this video is going to be about the tool's purpose. The purpose of my penis is to impregnate. That's going to be where it goes here, right? So if that's going to be the general way this video is going to go, well, we've already spent 5 minutes explaining why that's dumb.
Myself. He would explain to me what they did by describing what they were for. Everything that's created has a purpose. Jackhammers are for breaking up rock or pavement, YouTube is for sharing and watching videos, and a refrigerator is for keeping food cool. The same principle applies to sex.
Okay, so
the only way for us to know how we should act sexually towards others is to first answer the question, what is sex for?
Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. But I want to go ahead, before it goes any further, and point out the fact that every tool they listed there can have a myriad of extra purposes. A jackhammer can be used in self-defense by swinging it wildly at somebody's head. Not the intended purpose of the tool, but it could save your life. YouTube is meant for sharing videos and putting up videos, but it can also be used as a research tool, a research mechanism, not just watching videos on YouTube for research, but the process of creating a video can end up teaching you something. Not just about video creation, but also if you're researching a subject to make a video as if you were doing a presentation in school, this right here is your time to learn. That is not the purpose of YouTube, but it is a secondary thing that it can be used for. And if you don't care about sharing your videos to YouTube, you just want to throw them up there so that you have them archived for your own personal use, then you're not sharing videos anymore. You're just utilizing YouTube as an archiving service, and then, by extension of that, increasing your personal knowledge and using the archive to show each presentation that you've built after gaining that knowledge. These are different purposes for these tools. Why does this matter? Well,
and a refrigerator is for keeping food cool.
And just going to go ahead and point out here, not always food, sometimes bodies.
The same principle applies to sex. The only way for us to know how we should act sexually towards others is to first answer the question, what is sex for? Once we know what sex is for, we can know how to experience it as God intended for it to be experienced.
Okay.
So the next time someone asks you why Christians care so much about sex, explain that it's because God created sex for 3 important purposes.
All right, so God invented sex for procreation. God invented sex to create oneness between 2 people. God invented sex to point to the union we'll have with him in heaven. Can we have a conversation about consent for a moment here? Can you consent to the union between yourself and God in heaven? Because if you can't say no, then by virtue of not being able to say no, your saying yes doesn't matter. Does that make God rapey? In this particular build, in this particular version of an argument? But, okay, so sex for procreation, sex to create oneness between 2 people, God invented sex to point to the union we'll have between him and heaven. Okay, so let's go ahead and point out that if I'm polyamorous, which I am, and I see sex as a way for me to express love for my partner, or for my partner to express love to me, as I do, then wouldn't it then follow that any amount of partners, that sex can be used to create oneness between us? And likely, most of us are not wanting sex specifically for procreation because we're going in with the primary purpose of creating oneness between us. And if none of us are Christian, then we don't care about that third one. But can that same oneness happen between a gay couple? Yes. Can it happen between a trans couple? Yes. Can it happen between anybody? Yeah. But I'm sure that they will clarify.
First, God invented sex for procreation. Sex makes babies. Right at the beginning of the Bible in Genesis 1, God creates humans as male and female and tells them to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it.
An apologetic that has been used to fart with the climate for ages. But I'd also like to point out that the idea that you have to be fruitful and multiply, let's be a biblical scholar for a moment here, right? Let's look at this through the lens that a scholar would. During the early age of man, if we were to actually take, like, let's grant that the Bible is true for a moment. Grant that the Pentateuch was written by Moses, and so Moses is having to give reasons why each of these things are built the way they are. During this earlier age, it made more sense to have more babies because they died more often. You might live to the ripe old age of 31 if you're lucky, and you might have 1 of 10 kids survive, if you're lucky. Being fruitful and multiplying was the only way to maintain a population because so much of your population was dying so often. That is not the case anymore. In fact, actually, when the Bible talks about this in Leviticus, one of the 6 or so translations you can find for Leviticus, because it can be about pedastry, it can be about multiple different things, but even if you take Leviticus at its heart, the verses that talk about homosexuality being a sin, it is within the context of the world that they were living in. The context of a world where if a man was not procreating, then he was not doing one of his duties to their tribe because their tribe would not survive without mass procreation. Period. End of story. Now, it has been used by Christians since then to argue that homosexuality is a sin, but at the end of the day, the context that these happened, if we were granting that all of it's true, if we grant that, the context in which this stuff was written is that they needed bigger populations. So of course they focused on that. But we don't have that problem now. So we don't need to focus on it now. This is the same reason why they had arguments against seafood. People were known to get sick off of it, so it became a sin to eat seafood because it prevented people from getting themselves sick and further destroying their populations.
This is both a blessing from God and a command. That's right, having sex and making babies is actually a command. Sex is...
Yes, and again, if we grant that it was a command to a specific people who desperately needed to have lots of sex so that they could survive. Because again, the ripe old age of 31 was about your peak.
It's a procreative act.
This is true even when a child does not result. Some couples aren't able to have kids, yet when they are sexually active, their bodies unite in a way that is oriented toward procreation.
Okay, so does this mean that a couple should not engage in oral sex, should not engage in anal sex, should not engage in tit funking, should not engage... I could go on and on. You know what? Should not engage in rim jobbing. Should not engage in... And if you guys really want me to continue, I will, but I really want YouTube to be able to, like, monetize this video, so I don't know if I can. But by this logic, because sex, if you're engaging in the action that should result in procreation if everything was lined up properly, then that's the action you should be in all times. This necessarily means that other forms of sexual activity that do not involve strict penetration shouldn't be engaged in.
Even if the woman doesn't become pregnant in that act. Because sex has the potential to create new life, it is one of the most powerful acts that human beings can do.
I just thought about it. Growlith, shoosh. You've already been outside. You've already been out. But I just thought about this. Now, this is going to be kind of graphic, but does this mean that a couple can technically engage in anal sex so long as the female is laying in such a way that the dribble will then make it in and impregnate her. Is that the way? Is that the only way in which they'll be allowed to do that? I just realized that there are other ways in which these different types of sex can lead to that. Is it only okay for oral as long as they start like copiously shoving the ice cream in themselves afterwards? Is that... I know it's gross. I know it's gross to think about, but we have to ask ourselves these questions when we're dealing with a topic as interesting as this one.
This means that sex is a means to a greater end. It is not just
That end is orgasm. And it is great.
an end in and of itself, as it is often treated today.
Second, God invented sex to create oneness between two people.
Okay.
One of the most powerful aspects of sex is its ability to bond people together. Genesis 2:24 says that a man should leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. When a couple has sex, something changes in their relationship. They have entered into a deeper unity that is not only spiritual, but also emotional, relational, and even biochemical.
Okay, so the biochemical argument. This one, I've heard versions of this where it's like the man deposits his DNA in you and that DNA is in you forever, and the people who believe that are fucking stupid. But I want to go ahead and point out that this argument necessarily says that if you're asexual, you will never be able to experience a relationship as deep as people who fuck. That's basically what it argues. Or let's say you're too old, you're impotent, and you've never been able to have a functional relationship with somebody who you've had sex with. You have a deeper emotional connection with somebody later, but now that is completely and totally downplayed. Because somebody else who can have sex has a deeper, more emotional relationship now, by this definition. This seems needlessly exclusionary. More needlessly exclusionary than Christianity usually is.
Even after the physical act of sex, there's a degree of unity that remains, and it's designed to be lifelong.
I want to point out that when you say that after having sex you're designed to be lifelong partners, if you two are incompatible sexually and you didn't know beforehand, this type of thinking basically binds you to somebody else, and you might end up with somebody you're sexually incompatible with, which can lead to massive problems down the road. Let's say that you have two people who are monogamous, so the answer to their problem cannot necessarily be find a partner who can help. You have two people who are monogamous. One person has an incredibly high libido and super strong attraction. And one person is ace and does not realize it. They're asexual. They don't get off. They can't feel anything. They don't have any incentive or motivation to engage in sexual activity. They have no libido either. These two people get together and they have sex for the first time. And over a year or so, the ace person slowly starts to realize that they can't do this. They shouldn't do this. This isn't them. But they have in their mind that this is a bond for life. I have to deal with this. So even as they get to the point where they no longer really want the relationship that they're in, they no longer really want the sexual activity that they're in, because of this thinking, that sex has binded her or him or whoever into this relationship, and they are no longer able to leave without the pressure of this on them. There's already enough societal pressure against breakups to begin with. This makes it so much worse.
God created sex to be both an expression of and a vehicle for giving the other person your whole self.
Now imagine you're in a relationship with somebody and they have sex with you. They are giving you their whole self. But when you need help financially, they're not there. When you need help around the house, they're not there. When you need help emotionally, they're not there. You end up having a child and they ditch you. Did this person really give you their whole self? No. No, you just fucked. They didn't give you their whole self. This idea that having sex is giving your whole self to somebody. It's very romantic, but it's romantic in the same way that Disney movies are romantic, like old school Disney movies. Where, yeah, the idea that Aladdin and Jasmine would get together and live happily ever after, it's wonderful, but then you think about it as an adult and go, well, as romantic as that is, they've only known each other for a single day and their relationship was predicated on a lie. Wait. It's almost as if these types of infantilized romantic ideas behind sex diminish its value for people later because they end up having this super romanticized idea about it and end up either getting trapped in abusive situations or trapped in non-functional situations for themselves because they're too busy trying to live out this particular, at this point, a fantasy. Now, for some people, this may work. For some people, this could work perfectly fine. I know for me, this stuff kind of works for me, at least in some sense. I'm Demi. I already have to be attracted to somebody's personality. I have to be attracted to them as a person before physical attraction even starts factoring into the matter. But even then, if this person's not helping me out, not helping me grow, not helping me function as a human being, if they're actively hindering me, are they really giving me their whole self? I don't think so. And if I was doing the same, if I was having sex with somebody, but I wouldn't give them the time of day, I wouldn't play games with them, I wouldn't engage in activities they wanted to do, I wouldn't watch stuff with them, am I giving them my whole self? No. I'm giving them pieces parts. Dribbles, as you would say.
It's designed to help a man and a woman bond together for life. Third, God invented sex to point to the union we'll have with him in heaven. In Ephesians 5, the Apostle Paul tells us that marriage has existed since creation to point us toward the union between Christ and the church.
Now, I want to go ahead and point out some of the issues with that. We've gone over enough biblical gender roles, right, to know where this argument necessarily leads. What is the union between Christ and church? Depending on the Christian, this union can be one where Christ has dominant authority over the church, or one where it is a more even-handed approach. But for a lot of Christians, this Christ is Lord, therefore Christ dominates the church, therefore the church should do what they can to serve Christ, because he's already served them enough by taking his 3-day vacation. This necessarily leads to a really, really fucked up power dynamic between the idea of Christ and the idea of the church. And if you are going to model your relationship after the relationship that Christ has with his church, all of the same issues present themselves. But now they might be a little worse. Because if your relationship with Christ is the same as, if your relationship with Christ as the church is the same as your relationship with your husband as the wife, now you can't question your husband. Now, your husband can punish you with anything up to and including hellfire for your disloyalty. Now, your husband can beat you, can punish you, can do all these horrible things. And if you don't think he can, then I would highly suggest you watch any of the videos that we've done on biblical gender roles where these arguments have been made exactly in favor of being able to beat your wife, of being able to punish them, of being able to chastise them. If you don't believe that people have used that argument for those ends before, I welcome you to the internet, where bad ideas live here like mold on the walls of my house, and unlike the internet, I'm not able to burn it with a flamethrower.
At the very beginning of the Bible, there's a wedding between Adam and Eve. And at the very end of the Bible, we're told of a wedding that is going to happen.
When did they have a wedding? When did that happen? Because the way I remember the story, now maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a part that I do not remember. But the story of Adam and Eve, for me, was always Adam tried to fuck all the animals, realized that he wasn't compatible with any of them, so God said, okay, let me rip your rib out and make you a woman out of it. I made you out of dust, and before you come dust, I want you to come in her. And then they got in their relationship. Adam got tricked by Eve, which means their relationship is also predicated on lies. Great. All the Disney theming is happening here. And then God says, well, now that you guys have fucked up, you're out of the garden, but let me introduce you to this thing called barbecue, and kills a lamb right in front of them, and then rips off its pelt, throws the bloody pelt carcass on them, and goes, this is what clothes are, now eat the flesh, that's what food is now. And then they have 2 kids, and then one of the kids kills the other, and then a family gets started somehow, and the people of Nod happen somewhere along the lines. But where the fuck was the wedding and all that? I don't remember the wedding. When did that happen? Where was Lilith? How did she feel about all that? But, regardless, I guess we'll just continue.
Happen between Christ, who is the groom, and the church, who is the bride.
Which necessarily would mean an abusive relationship, because the power dynamics are so thoroughly shifted in Christ's favor that he can do anything and the bride can do nothing.
Human marriage was designed to be a signpost that points us to the greater union that Christians will have with Christ in heaven. As we saw earlier, the one flesh union of a man and a woman is a bond that entails an emotional, relational, spiritual, and physical element.
And all of that can exist in a gay relationship or a poly relationship. But, you know.
When people focus merely on the physical element, they miss the deeper unity, that intimate connection that occurs between 2 people in the act of sex. It is this kind of holistic union that foreshadows the kind of greater union we will have with God in heaven.
Yeah, no. So that just tells me that not only do you want relationships on Earth to have super unbalanced power dynamics and be abusive, or have the opening for abuse, you also want those types of relationships forever without consent. I'll pass, thanks.
As wonderful as it is, sex only anticipates the deeper fulfillment that all believers will experience with God in heaven. It's foreshadowing something far greater that's still coming.
All right. Okay, so baby, did you enjoy tonight? We had a great time together. But you know, no matter how many times I pumped you full of my love juice, and no matter how many times you screamed, you're gonna scream a hell of a lot harder when Jesus comes again. That's what I read from that. That is exactly what I read from that. And I feel really disturbed. Really disturbed. It is a gross situation to picture. Just think about it. No matter how good your relationship is with your spouse, it will never be as relationship as, you know what? Here, the perfect way to do it. The virgin earthly relationship versus the Chad godly relationship. That's what I got out of that. That's what I got out of that. Of course there's a war in Bossing Say. Someone on their production team has to know how this all sounds, right? There's got to be someone. There's got to be someone on their production team that caught that and just went, wait, hold on. Doesn't this sound a little bit like God's kind of rapey? I'm confused. Yeah. Things are weird. This video was weird. I feel weird. Do you guys feel weird? Because I feel weird. Someone cut the deep voice and posted as is. Go ahead, do it. Cut that right there. Cut the deep voice and send it to an animator. Alright, that said, if you guys enjoyed that, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button if you have not already. Please share it with friends if you enjoyed. Please go to my Patreon if you want to support what I do. But past that, thank you for watching. God's dick is way more greater. God's dick is the greaterest. You will never know the throbbing passion of the Christ. That was fun, though. I enjoyed myself. Did you? Oh God, that sounds so much worse. That sounds so much worse. It was good for me. Was it good for you? Jesus, take the wheel. We're going to the back. Sir, stop. I just spit out my tea. Well, that makes cooking class awkward. Never heard Passion of the Christ before. Actually felt passion. That was pleasing. Oh God, I'm gonna do that more often. Sir's Jack Off for Jesus campaign when Jack Off for not Raptor Jesus, Alligator Jesus. For those who don't know, okay, you know what? This is the next hour of streaming starting 2021 with a great laugh. Yes. God doesn't just like men. He loves men. God is omnipresent. That means God is already deeper inside you than any man will ever be. Maybe that's why he doesn't like gay marriage, so he can keep them for himself. Judas Iscariot, it's 4 p.m. It's time for your pegging session. When you only saw one set of footprints in the sand, it was I who carried you while charging up my J.O. crystals. Jesus Christ, probably. For those who don't know, there's a channel called Game Apologist, and if you haven't seen it already, I would highly suggest watching the video he did on Vector the Crocodile, because Alligator Jesus is the real Jesus. And if you don't believe me, Nick can convince you. God is omnipresent. That means God was in the shower when you dropped the soap, and he was already inside you. Dude. Let's see here. Can we talk for a second about stimulus checks? I mean, I've talked about it a bunch, but there is a movement going on right now called Force the Vote, where stimulus checks are concerned. And it's not just about stimulus checks. It's about a lot of shit. But, so, Force the Vote. What this is a movement basically saying that they demand that any progressive person in Congress should refuse to vote for Nancy Pelosi. Why should they refuse to vote for Nancy Pelosi? Well, she hasn't publicly pledged to support Medicare for all. And as a result, there are people who want to hold her feet to the fire and say, well, no, we're going to force the vote. You are going to not be Speaker of the House if you cannot get us universal health care. Now, why does this matter? Well, I think I've made a point several times on my channel to talk about healthcare and how this is important. If you have a family member who's ever not been able to afford healthcare and you've ran a GoFundMe in a desperate attempt to get them care, then you already know why this is important. And if you don't think that they should get healthcare, then the argument would necessarily be poor people don't deserve healthcare. Or they deserve substandard healthcare. And if you don't think that's the argument, please reassess. That's functionally where you are. And if you think that healthcare is something that would mean slavery for the healthcare workers, then by definition you believe that firemen and policemen are slaves. Which most people probably wouldn't agree with as well. But their jobs function under the same pretenses. So, let's go ahead and talk about Force the Vote. Pelosi is running for her fourth term as Speaker of the House. And we've had plenty of time to try to push Medicare for all. But I think those in the audience, can at least understand when I say that Democrats don't really represent the left very well. Oh, they represent liberals perfectly fine. But if you know anything about the Overton window, then you know that liberals aren't really the left. Most of your functional left side are not capitalists. Might not even be anti-capitalists, but they're not capitalists. I myself am a socialist. If somebody calls me a liberal, I'm like, no, and I don't like them either. Not as much as some right person doesn't like them. Usually liberals can be pretty progressive. So, why is it that people on the left, we here, should accept Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House of the Congress? Because I'm going to be honest here. At the end of the day, I don't think we should. Not unless she's willing to say, hey, there are some policies that we desperately need to actually allow through. One of them would be Medicare for All. Now, Medicare for All is not a perfect package. It is not a perfect solution to healthcare in the United States, but it would be better than the solution we're dealing with right now. Now, why do I have a leg in this? Well, let me explain the healthcare situation where I'm concerned right now, and maybe you'll understand why this system is so broken. If you're not in the States, this may sound really weird to you, but if you are in the States, this might actually be familiar. We have the Affordable Health Care Act, which ostensibly is supposed to be there to make sure that we can actually afford healthcare. But if healthcare is a human right, it shouldn't be affordable. Nestle Water's affordable, and water is a human right, though the CEO of Nestle didn't agree with that. Healthcare shouldn't be affordable. It should be a right. It is a thing you get for being a citizen, especially a tax-paying citizen. In my situation, my healthcare bill is about $160, something like that. $160 a month. That's what it is for healthcare for me, and it's not the greatest healthcare. It's not the best. It's a little Ambetter plan that, you know, is not the best thing that is on the market, but it is functional enough. Maybe, I think. I haven't been able to get it yet because open enrollment just ended. So we'll see well, it's January now. We'll see. But what about Raz, my partner? Well, you'd think that the Affordable Health Care Act, that tries to make things affordable for American citizens, would make it so that she could afford health care. But lo and behold, what she makes from streaming is under the poverty line. Now, I'm under the poverty line as well, but I am within 100 to 400% of the poverty line. Raz is not. She is under 400% of the poverty line. What does that mean? Well, it means that Raz has to pay full price for healthcare. Hers is almost $400 a month. Now, we are in a unique situation. I went on to Patreon. I said, hey guys, I normally do 4 charges a month, but I'm going to have to go up to 5 charges a month because if I don't, we will not be able to afford healthcare, and we need it because we have not been able to see doctors for years. Raz and I both need to see a neurologist. We need to see not only like basic wellness check doctors, but also specialists for certain things, and we've not been able to. So we need healthcare in order to continue to function. But we cannot afford it because it could have been more affordable, but the Affordable Care Act specifically does not do jack for helping us afford all of our health care. It helped me. It gave me a subsidy. Oh, but here's the other thing about the Affordable Health Care Act. If you end up making more money, like you just have a good year, then you end up owing that subsidy back because you made more money. So really, the Affordable Health Care Act is a giant Band-Aid, and it's barely fucking functional. It's gotten 20 million more people healthcare that wouldn't have been able to get it otherwise. Yeah, that's cool. That's great. But it could be so much better. And it could be better under something like Medicare for All. Instead of just saying that you have to be a certain threshold of disabled or you have to be a certain threshold of this for us to give you something that the United States agreed was a human right when they helped the United States pen the Declaration of Human Rights, but the United States has its own super special one that doesn't include healthcare. So, Force the vote. If you can contact your local Congress, if you can contact your local politicians who have a hand in any of this, please do so. And let them know that we need to get somebody in there who's actually going to be a functional head of house and who's going to not just sit back and be a corporate shill. Because that's one of the biggest problems with politics in America right now, is that I cannot name a single politician off the top of my head that could not be persuaded by some amount of money. And at the end of the day, capitalist businesses have a lot of money to throw around. If you're a pharmaceutical business, it pays better for you to just go, hey, we're an insurance company. It pays better for you to lobby than it does for you to actually let a human right go through. It pays much better. So if you can, let's see if we can do anything about that. Let's see if we can do something about that. Because outside of outliers, our politicians are pretty well and royally fucked. It's basically just like watching football at this point. Democrats run under the banner that healthcare is a human right. But it is incredibly easy to campaign for something like that when it's not up for a vote. But as soon as it's up for a vote, suddenly things change. So forcing a vote for Medicare for all can force people like Nancy Pelosi to take a hardline stance on it. And if she doesn't take the stance that the people need, well, we have a representative democracy. She is no longer representing the people. Get her the fuck out. So, I'm not going to be providing a link because this is going up as a video later, but I will be sending a link into chat real quick. So maybe, just maybe, see if you can do your part, see what you can do, and see if maybe we can unfuck America, because it's been pretty well fucked for a while. And I'm not the biggest fan of the state we're in. I'm also curious. Hold on a second. Oh boy. That's good to know. That segment didn't get recorded. Oh well. I guess it's not going to be recorded. I'll do it as a separate video later. Because I still want that to be a video. There's no need to invent a new healthcare system for the United States. They could just copy and paste the French system, which costs less than half as much per person. Ugh. If they can't even do 4 stimulus checks right in Senate, then I don't really see the point in doing so for Medicare for all. Well, the point is to apply constant pressure. Constant and consistent pressure. Because what happens a lot in politics is that when there's constant pressure on something, you can filibuster and divert and avoid it for a certain amount of time, and then suddenly it becomes an issue that you have to address. But it only becomes an issue you have to address when it's been pushed for so long. If you can push against it and then suddenly we're given something small like the ACA, and then people back off of it, then the politicians get to go, oh, I get to Julius Caesar this mess. There's no longer need to explore uncharted territory on the word of drugs thing because Portugal already explored it, tried a route, and the route they tried worked. Hey, sir, is any idea how to go about convincing someone that gay men aren't lesser men? They're a friend of mine, but I feel weird being around them with my husband. Ask them what their criteria is for a man, and ask them what criteria you fail. And then ask them why that criteria matters. A lot of times when you're dealing with a bigot, the easiest thing to do is to put the ball in their court and ask them to explain. You know what? Hell, let's just do that. Why don't we have an entire section on dealing with a bigot? The ways to deal with a bigot, just in general, and I'm glad Justin brought this up because this is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a little while. At least as like a dedicated video. How often do we cram facts down their throat? How often do we aggressively, you're racist, you're this, you're that, you're a transphobe, you're all these things? And those things may be true. They may be. But what works better in certain situations, especially with somebody you love? Is it better to prove your superior knowledge on the topic? Or is it better sometimes to kind of hold their hand and show them why they're wrong? Now, what's the best way to show them why they're wrong? Or show them how they're wrong? It's different for every situation, but the situation that was brought up here specifically was about how a person thinks that gay men are lesser men. The way you would handle that, or the way that I would handle it personally, is to ask what criteria somebody has for a man. And then ask them what criteria you fail. And if one of those criteria is has a girlfriend or has a wife, and you point out, well, what if somebody is just so much better independent? Or what if they're so rich that having a wife is dangerous? Like, there might be a chance of them taking their wealth, right? Let's step into the capitalist shoes for a second here, and we do that. What about them? And if they keep on coming up with exceptions and go, well, either an exception can be made for you because, well, you're not straight, or an exception can be made for you because they realize that their criteria was bullshit in the first place. But a lot of times, if you throw the ball into their court and ask them why, sometimes they'll find that their reasoning is not 100% thought out. Or they'll parrot something that you already know. If you know a lot about this topic, enough to slam their head, to dunk on them in a conversation, then you probably have enough to know where they got their information from. I'll give you an example that happened with me and my family. There is a member of my family who is conservative, but I don't think they really know why they're conservative. They don't know anything about economics. They've ran a business before, as far as like they were a manager. And they've been in work and in a position of relative privilege for an incredibly long time. When it comes to stuff like economics, when it comes to stuff like proletariat rights, when it comes to stuff like that, I've done a lot of reading. I can sit there and dunk on those topics. But if me and this person are having a conversation, sometimes it's better for me to go, well, why do you think that? What happened the last time we had a conversation about BLM specifically is he started stating things that I knew from Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson. I could pull the individual quotes in the conversation. The straight thing that I said during that was shut the Fox News up. But regardless, the point is, if you know enough to dunk on somebody, you probably also know where their points are coming from if you give them a chance to articulate them. And if you know the responses to those points, letting them get out those points first sometimes works a lot better than just cramming all the information down their throat. Because when you cram all the information down their throat, you are just another voice against the voice that they already listen to. And you guys have equal weight now. But if you respond directly to the points that come from that other voice, you might be able to actually gain ground. This is why I tend to do video responses instead of responding to ideas and like presenting the idea to you and then responding to it. Because when I present the idea to you and respond to it, there's a chance that I've strawmanned it. There's a chance that I've gotten something wrong. But if I do this as a video response, I've given that side the time to articulate their position in their video, and then I can respond to that point. Throw the ball in their court. If they're a bigot, throw the ball in their court and let them articulate to you why. A good way this was done to me with a friend ages ago. I made a racist joke. I think it was like seven years ago, something like that. I made a racist joke around him, and he pressed me and said, "Why is that funny?" And after about 2 or 3 minutes of blundering around, I realized that, well, it wasn't. I guess it really wasn't. I kind of had to already agree with some stereotypes that were incorrect in order to see why this joke might have been funny. I don't remember what the joke was at the time, because it's been years. But he threw the ball in my court and said, okay, neat joke, but why did you find it funny? What about that joke stimulated your humor? And I ended up floundering. It's not going to happen all the time. Somebody might, if you ask somebody why they don't like black people, they might immediately start going, well, you see, they actually have less IQ than white people. But I'm not a white supremacist because, well, the Asians, they got bigger IQs than us. It has something to do with their skull shapes or something like that. That's what I read, anyway, from my favorite YouTuber, ex-YouTuber, Stephen Molyneux. Now, if you are engaged in that conversation readily, you probably have already been able to identify the things that have been said there. There's been a reference to the bell curve, because that's where the claims on IQ and race stem from. There's been a conversation about phrenology, which was the study of skull shapes as it relates to ethnic groups. And, of course, a name drop of a particular person, which might not always happen, but in this example there was. So you've got three things. But if you have read the bell curve, have watched Molyneux and watched takedowns of Molyneux, and understand the problems and the processes presented in phrenology, you've got a whole conversation there to change somebody's mind. You can point out how skull shape does not necessarily correlate to gray matter in the brain, which necessarily means that it does not correlate to somebody's ability to function properly, or however properly they think. You can point out the arbitrary usage of IQ and how IQ measures a very specific set of skills, but it does not measure actual intelligence, because there are different types of intelligence, emotional intelligence, artistic intelligence, that are not necessarily measured very well by an IQ test. An IQ test checks in for a very specific set of things and then gets used as a measuring device after the fact. You can then point out that, well, hold on, if somebody's grown up in an underdeveloped country with an underdeveloped education system, then even if we accepted the IQ test to be 100% accurate, it would necessarily mean that these people, not by virtue of their genetics, but by virtue of their environment, would not pass this as well. Just like I wouldn't expect somebody to pass an aerospace engineering test if they're an artist. Pointing out that no matter where on the line you stop, the bell curve argument is not going to give you an actual accurate representation of somebody's intelligence in any way, shape, or form. And then, of course, it's easy to dunk on Molyneux. You can go about that route, but you only knew what angles of attack to go through because you let them tell you. Now, this does not work in all cases. This is not me arguing that YouTube should allow every bigot on the platform to spout their stuff so that we can then respond to it. This is about letting an individual outside of a platforming scenario have the opportunity to explain to you why they have the views that they do, and so that you can then educate them, correct them. And even if you fail at it, there's a thing called the fallacy of change, and it is where you put the worth of the truth value of a statement that you have held to based on its ability to convince someone else, or your ability to convince someone else with it. Don't fall for this particular fallacy and start thinking that, well, I can't do this because I can't convince this person. That method might not work for them. It might work for somebody else. If you can get at least one or two people to break out of racist ideology, to break out of misogynistic ideology, to break out of homophobic ideology, you've made a positive impact on the world. Like, flat out, you've done it. You've done your deed for society. If everybody did that to one or two people, then we wouldn't have very many racists or misogynists left. So when you're dealing with a bigot, if you have the opportunity, and it is safe for you to do so, throw the ball in their court, get them to explain their point. And if you can't respond to something because you don't have a lot of knowledge on a topic, be honest about that. Go, hey, I'll look into that and we'll revisit this conversation later. Because likely, if they're taking their opinion from YouTube or Facebook or a meme or something else, you can probably debunk it. Especially if you're using correct primary sourcing methods. So do so. how to deal with a bigot, sometimes without dunking. Woo. Subscribe, like, Patreon, all that other fun stuff. Do it, please. That'd be very helpful. I like pizza. Oh. I had to pop the neck again. They don't know why they're conservative describes a lot of people who I know who say they're conservative, but if you ask them why, they just try to change the subject. Yeah. Also, yeah, it was asked earlier in the chat, do I have two differently colored eyes? Yes. One is brown, one is hazel. I have heterochromia. Give me a second to see if there's anything else I want to do. One sec. Do. Okay. Anywho. And you've got blue eyes with yellow rings around the pupil. Cool. Every time you crack your neck, I get the urge to crack mine. Ah! Stochastic cracking. As it do. As it do. How far have we been at this? Been at this about 2 hours. I think we're just about ready to wrap up. I think we are just about ready to wrap up things. At least I think. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. But, you know, I think we're just about at that point. But I do want to thank everybody for watching. I've not had a lot of time to stream lately. But, see, favorite commander at MTG. I don't play a lot of commander, but I do have a Nessa. Or no, not Nessa. I do have a Freya that I enjoy a lot because she spawns basically Llanowar elves. And I am an elf player, so I enjoy swarming the field with big tiny boys. But I do want to thank everybody for watching. I do want to thank everybody for coming out today. I know I haven't been live streaming a lot lately, and there's been a lot of reasons for that. But hopefully, if you guys enjoyed, then maybe you'll leave a like, do things down below. And I'm going to go ahead and hop out. Probably get some food. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you guys, the ones who donated on PayPal during the stream. And I am going to go take care of myself. See you, everybody.